be taken off immediately.
Okay, understood. All right. Yeah. So let me know when we are ready to go.
So we can start now. I'll just a second. I'll just.
Sure.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. We have Ms. Sudha Krishnan with us, CHRO of ILFS, to discuss her journey of corporate life. She has been into various industries and she has been into talent acquisition, she has been training, she has her own website. So, there is so many things to learn from her. So, we would be continuously knowing more and more how she has taken her corporate career ahead. And on to you, ma'am. Uh, Tell us more about how you started off as an HR. Like, what made you think that you have to go in HR field?
Mm. First of all, Pratima, thank you so much for having me over for this chat. And it's always nice to interact with people, share their journey, share some parts of my journey. So yeah, so big thank you to you and your team. And I don't know if Varsha is here, but a big thanks to Varsha as well for having reached out and and talked about this. Okay, so I will start with how I landed in HR. So that's actually quite a pleasant accident that I landed in HR. I used to read many, I mean, that was like really long time ago. There used to be a supplement to a newspaper, a leading newspaper in the city that I was in then, which was in Calcutta. And that supplement used to publish a lot of stories of employees, their problems, and then people would write about the solutions. And then there was this little like an agony aunt kind of a column where people would write about their questions and queries, and there would be an expert who would respond to it. But what fascinated me was the stories of the workplaces that I read in that annexure. And I thought, okay, this sounds like a nice profession, so maybe I could give it a shot. So that's, yeah, so that's really how simple and how basic my journey in HR has, I mean, started, many years ago. Then I joined a really great organization, which is now known as Vodafone. That time it was actually the city's second mobile operator back then. When people were still, people used to mistake mobile phones as transistors sometimes, because the mobile phones used to be really big those days and stuff. So they were kind enough to accommodate and give me a position in HR when I went to them and said I would like to do something like this. So it's that basic, that where I started. And hence my faith that when a person knows the ground realities, the foundation of a discipline or a domain, that goes a long way to make an impression or make a work portfolio which is worth sharing. I don't know if mine is, but the very fact that you have invited me for a chat like this, I mean, there must be something right, I guess. I would just like to leave it at that. Yeah, but that only reiterates when all the experts and people who are so knowledgeable and who have such impressive careers, one consistent thing that everybody says is that get your basics right. And to get that basic right, it's important to start by understanding what really is this domain about. So working with people, working with different situations, working with, and different situations means that when I don't know something, any situation is challenging. And the beauty of that is that when one overcomes a challenge, which may not be a challenge actually for many people around, many people may think, "Arey, ye kya hai?" I mean, it's so simple. But if I don't know much and I'm just starting off, but I actually overcome that challenge, it creates some sort of a confidence. And I think confidence is again an important trait for any person, whether the person is in HR or any other discipline, or not even corporate, it goes anywhere beyond. Yeah, so my journey has been from one experience to another experience. I've been very blessed and lucky to have had multiple experiences which gave me good exposure. And how that helps me today is because if somebody raises a certain question, or if a situation presents itself in front of me, I'm able to understand the crux of it because I've had exposure. I know a lot of people want to play safe, and they don't want to take much risk, or they don't want to open themselves up to challenging situations. But I would say that the other side works better. The more you open yourself to experiences, the more you allow yourself to gain exposure, the better one is as one keeps growing in one's career. From, I'm not necessarily saying about grade and level and stuff, but just the fact that you're in a certain position requires one to function in a certain way. And I think a lot of that I would credit in my own career, I would credit to the experiences that I've had. Challenges. The fact that HR as a profession deals with people, because dealing with people in itself is a beautiful challenge. Because every individual is different, everyone interprets a situation differently, everyone has a view on a certain situation, and HR is at the center of all of this, and protecting the interest of various stakeholders, whether it's the employer, the brand, the leadership, peers, and everyone. Like, the biggest joke is when you can't find what went wrong, is to say, oh, HR ने ही कुछ किया होगा.
It's a thankless job.
I won't say it's a thankless job. I would say that it's the beauty of it is that when a problem is not getting resolved, it's often that people will go to HR guy and say, ultimately, this matter is about people, so it is your responsibility. So, which means that, everything about an organization is about people, right? Organization is because there are people. Yeah, so that's a good part, because then you become a problem solving expert, because all the problems land up in your desk. So I won't say it's thankless, but I would say that, yeah, if you did your job well, it's not like somebody's going to come and give a nice pat on your back and say, hey, really well done. But yes, if something is not done, then for sure, somebody's going to point the finger and say, HR ne kiya nahi. Yeah, but that also adds to the beauty of this profession, because then, there's inroads into organization. You're working with so many people. And that also helps a person earn credibility and equity in the organization. That, oh, you know what, I went to that department and, those guys really helped me solve my problem. Halanki, shayad problem must have been like a really small one, but nobody was taking ownership. But when it came to HR had to take ownership, because, it's, after all, it's a people-related problem or a people-related challenge. Yeah, so that's nice. I won't say thankless. It's just different. It comes in easier for other disciplines to get accolades or recognition. For HR, it's tad more difficult.
I remember this ILFS HRs calling me, maybe junior to you, when, and asking us, okay, we have very good employees with us, and if you have good position, please help them to get good jobs, which was very different, because it is always other way around. We call them as a consultant and we say that we have good employees you hire in your company, and it was other way around. So how did you deal with the situation when all these things were happening? And this was a very unique initiative, I must say, because none of the company I have seen where HR themselves taking so much of initiatives and, calling and trying to place their own employees of their own company in different companies.
See, Pratima, remember I told you that, I started from like, I started really humble. I started working on rudimentary aspects of HR. So I think somewhere the ability to empathize with difficult situations and people who find themselves in a difficult situation for maybe sometimes or a lot of times for no fault of theirs. So I guess that, that factor comes in very naturally to me. Like, is there a better way of dealing with a crisis or a challenge? Is there something extra that one can offer? It's, yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong about just sticking to the brief that, you have to do this task, however difficult that the task may be, or however challenging it may be for the people who are at the receiving end of it. But if I am owning that task, is there a personal touch that I can add to that task? If I take a simple or a small step forward, can that make life easier for another person? So I think these are all a lot of these are actually linked to, I guess, my own personal experiences, my personal values, and how I have grown up. Like, I've grown up in a very, very simple background, so I carry that with me. And I understand that for a person to be able to find in a situation when that person is not going to have a job tomorrow, 1 month down the road, or whatever it is, I think it's one of the most difficult moments of that person's life, however much we may want to underplay it. But at that point, it is the most difficult. And the other part is that it's not the employee alone, right? There's a family, there's an ecosystem. Well, I'm not saying that, 100% of such situations we can support or we can do something, but wherever possible. And I guess if my team did that, then I didn't know about it, that they actually did it, which means that there's something that flows in the team as a part of the way we do things, where it's not as if it's left to the discretion of one person. So it fills my heart with pride that they actually carried that ethos, something that's been there in the organization, that's been there in the team. They actually carried that ethos and they took that step. That's amazing. So all kudos to them.
It's they were taking responsibility, and they were helping actually employees even if after the layoff, which was really great. What do you suggest? Like, there must be so many situations which you might have faced, not once, maybe in different companies as well. So any one incident you wish to share, you feel this happened and it could have been better.
So, I did find myself in a difficult situation as well. And I was telling you some time back that my reliance on experience and exposure is because I've been through that. And hence I understand that how some of these things work and what happens when an employee gets impacted. So I did have a situation like that, not getting into the details of it. But so I remember one of my seniors once telling me that, what will happen at worst, you may not live in the place where you live, and maybe you'll have to live far off, and maybe you'll have to pay less amount of rent because you won't have an earning. And I felt really pained, from that conversation. Like, I wasn't really looking for someone to add more trouble. I was already troubled with what had happened to me. And then that person was telling me that you have to leave your home and you have to go and live in a probably lesser expensive area, and you have to make changes in your lifestyle and stuff like that. I felt very pained, and I came back home and I was actually calculating that, how much savings do I have so that, I can sustain. But very quickly, like maybe in a matter of hours, I said, what, this is not something that I'm going to take. Let me see what more can be done. And I reached out to a few people, and there are always good Samaritans in the world. That's how the world runs, right? There are always people who are willing to help. And somebody came forward, and that person said, okay, I'm going to put you across to someone. And she did put me across to somebody. And it was less than 3 days that I actually landed with another job, and that paid me more. And that also gave me a better designation. So obviously I didn't have to go and live in another area which probably was less expensive or whatever. But what it taught me is that most people find it difficult. They may not be intending, but sometimes people want to make you more resilient to a situation. But I think resilience is a lot about fighting it and not succumbing to it. So yeah, so I would say that, these things happen. Sometimes we question, how fair is the world, but the world is fair because on one hand, I did find myself in a difficult situation for no fault of mine, but look at the balancing factor, that there are these really bunch of nice people who come forward and they help you. And then the disturbance that this could have caused to my life actually was almost eliminated over a period of 2 to 3 days. So I think keeping that faith that uh, the world runs in its own equilibrium, so it's just about coming to a frame of mind which is more about fighting it out, which is more about doing what I can do, focus more on that, not about why was I given this behavior, or why did this happen to me. We'll have time for all of that in our life. Like, I can have the luxury today to start thinking. I had thought about it. It happened many years ago. I did think about that, and I had a closure. But at that point of time, it was important to fight it rather than to dwell on what happened. So my simple suggestion, and this is no advice, my simple suggestion would be that when a situation like that happens, it's important to say, what are the other doors that are opening up for me? Where can I go and see which other doors are opening? Rather than dwelling on it, one can find closure later. And again, this is not theoretical. As I said, I narrated a very, very real example which happened to me. So I can tell you what can work basis my own experiences.
And when it comes to resilience, I think COVID is a situation where everyone is fighting. So as an HR, what do you feel like how COVID is going to impact the industry, and how we can be resilient towards it?
That's a great question, Pratima. Yeah. So see, I mean, of course, this is, in a lot of ways, this is a wake-up call to many, 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 many aspects, in many, many aspects. The way we have been living our life, the way we've been working, the way we have approached growth, the way we have, conceptualized affordability, so many things, like very simple, like, let's look at our inclination to buy stuff. When there's affordability, one wouldn't really apply a discretion whether I really need it. It's often like, oh, this is really nice and I think I can afford it, so let me take it. Kabhi na kabhi to I will use it. But look at us, I mean, just look at the other side of it today. Like we've been taught that we can pretty much live our lives with half a dozen clothes, much, much lesser than what we would like to possess. Similarly, when I try to extrapolate this into human resources, like not only about doing so many initiatives to manage employee morale, manage employee motivation, working overtime to bring in employee development measures, employee development initiatives, ring fence people, keep people together. What is it called? Attendances, like, people have to log in, come in at 9 o'clock, and if it becomes 9:05, it's going to be a late marking. And so much pressure, right? People would wake up and run, and the only focus of the whole day starts with reaching office on time. Where is it today? Where is that rush today? There is no rush. I mean, there is rush for getting into one's laptop or desktop or, getting into the call. But just imagine the amount of energy which is freed up. Like, whether you wake up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock as an employee, today you don't have to think कि मुझे 7:45 की train पकड़ना है, या I have to be there on the bus stand by 8 o'clock. I have to somehow dart myself into the office by 9 o'clock, otherwise I'm going to be late. And if there are 3 days that I'm late, then I'm going to be marked absent. All the stress is out. That's on the employee side. Look at the employer side. I don't think we are really overworking ourselves about managing morale, motivation, productivity. I'm sure it will emerge, we will have to put a structure at some point of time to assess productivity about working from home. But it's a breather. It's teaching us new things. It's teaching us new ways of working. It's teaching employers to trust their employees more. like, you know, whether I am suited, booted or not while I'm taking a call, as long as I am responding to the call in a manner that I'm expected to respond to, I think the line is drawn over there. No one's talking about grooming. No one's talking about reaching office on time. No one's talking about any of these things. As long as the work is getting done, I think it's also a beautiful way of employees, you know, returning the employer's trust back to the employer, saying, guys, you don't have to really police us anymore. We are working from home. We are delivering what is required. You know, I can speak for my organization. Probably we are working much longer hours now, because the lines of working in office and leaving office, they've all got blurred. You know, there are calls at 7:30 in the morning. There are calls at 9 o'clock in the evening. And we are still responding to emails, to calls. But what it has done is that the whole stress about going to a particular place, the whole rush of things around that, that's changed. The employer-employee equation has, I would say, the way I look at it, is probably far more empowering now. It's no more controlled. It's more free, and it's more trusting. It's a lot lesser stressful for the employer also. And the good thing is that, you know, we learn something new. We learn to measure productivity when people work from home. How do we measure productivity? It's a new initiative. We don't know. We haven't done that earlier as effectively. I mean, most organizations would have had work from home policies, but they were really smaller, like, you know, few days in a month or maybe a period of time. But it's not like the norm. Today, it's done. Most people are working from home. And COVID also, I think, is a wonderful global equalizer. Look at all this. You know, it's no more about the hierarchy in the organization, right? It's not कि CEO को नहीं हो सकता, or maybe, you know, it will only happen to a certain level of people. It can happen to anyone. So it's a lovely equalizer. Everyone's as vulnerable, everyone's as susceptible, and everyone's as responsible. Like if my colleagues and my peers are wearing a mask and gloves and maintaining social distance when they go out, even if they have to go to office sometime or the other, so is any other employee in the organization. So it's a beautiful equalizer. So I obviously look at it that way. It's a wonderful opportunity to bring in new initiatives, employees to reassess. It's a good opportunity for us to reassess, right? What do we really want from life?
You're very positive towards it.
But tell me something. How else? I was thinking that how else? What
there is no other way. You have to be positive. There is no other way. So as we are dealing with people, so there must be a lot of out of the way incident, or an incident which is full of humor, which you know never expected, and yeah, this happened. Any incident like that happened in your career?
Interestingly, you know, many years ago this was. A department secretary got a letter done, okay, and he brought the letter to the head of the department, and the head of the department told him that justify the letter. So he went to his boss, because he was a representative of his boss, right? He went and told his boss that so-and-so is asking you to justify the letter. So this guy says, why should I justify the letter? I have already written what I have to write. It's just for them to see the letter before it is issued. So so this other gentleman got really worked up that, you know, I have said that they should justify the letter. How can they send a letter like this without justifying it? This is a horrible piece of communication, and, you know, I don't agree with it. And this poor guy goes back to his boss again, and he says that, you know, he's still stuck, and he says to justify. So none of them are really going to each other's office to talk, you know, they're all communicating via media. And then I was told that, you know, you go and explain to him that this letter needs to be justified. So, I mean, I also didn't understand, and I was a rookie then. So I asked him, so what kind of justification are you looking for in this letter? So he said, just look at the format of this letter. It's not justified. The texts are going all over. So, so it was basically, justify on the MS Word mode, so that the text looks uniform. But look how people interpret it, because this guy said justify, that guy saying, how dare he tells me to justify the letter? Why should I give it? It's a beautiful example which has stayed with me, and I have actually interpreted this incident so many times in my life in various contexts. It's a beautiful context of ego. It's a beautiful context of how can my peer say that, I have not done something properly. It's a beautiful example of how communication gets misinterpreted, how the flavor is lost, and all of that. So I think this is a classic one which has stayed with me for so many years. Justify. So the moment somebody says justify the letter, I can't not have a smile on my face. So I often tell them, you mean justify in MS Word, right? Not about justifying why the letter. Yeah, so this is something that stayed with me for a very, very long time.
That was actually it is funny, as well as it has a lot of ego, communication, everything is there. So yeah, things do happen.
I mean, that's something that happens in most of the times, right? Like, people do not really spend time to understand what is the crux of it, because there are so many filters and barriers that one operates in. Yeah, so it's yeah.
And then most of the time people don't want to communicate directly, so the media of communication is also an issue.
Imagine the plight of the
Poor guy.
department secretary. He's just going from one office to the other with a letter saying he wants it to be justified, he doesn't want to justify it. Yeah, beautiful lesson here, of course.
We have Sailesh sir with us. Sir, would you like to ask some questions?
I think sir is on mute.
Sailesh sir is
Yeah.
from Tata.
Yes. I've unmuted myself.
Yeah.
No, Ms. Bhattacharya, the one on justify admin splits. I think it's a fantastic example of miscommunication and the tensions that must have arisen between the two departments because of the, into inverted commas, ego clash, possible ego clash between the two persons. But I do have some questions.
Sure, sir.
You mentioned that you started in the HR department in Calcutta. I have worked for some years in TCS.
Okay.
I was company secretary of TCS, and I have found that in TCS, very often the HR and TCS employs now, I think, the largest number of persons, maybe 350,000 or something like that. When I was there, it was about 125,000. But the HR head never had any HR qualifications. He was a IT person. He was an information technology person who had worked in various places and was at a point of time made head of HR. Now, for persons like me, I'm a company secretary, for persons like me, a basic qualification is very important. That I must have my ACS, or even for a CFO, he must have his accounting degree, either from Institute of, anyway. How important do you think is this basic qualification for an HR person? Basic qualification means you go to a MBA school and become an MBA in HR, as against what I've seen in TCS, and maybe you also. I do not know.
So that's a great question, and I'm so glad that you said something like this. So here's my take. I would think that with my experience, I would say that having a formal degree opens up certain employment opportunities. Like, some companies have a restrictive clause saying if one is not an MBA in HR, one will not be able to apply. And it's also great in a lot of ways because it brings in a certain decorum and a certain formal entry into a profession like this. But human resources as a profession is all about understanding nuances of people behavior, bridging the gap between what the organization intends that its employees to do and how employees can respond to those, intentions, targets, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
It's also about in picking information from the ground and making sure that they are heard at the level where, from people who are at the level of making policies and creating processes, to again ensuring that this flow of communication is undiluted and it's presented and provided in a manner. So it's a lot about really understanding human behavior. It's a lot about understanding organization dynamics. It's about understanding what drives an organization, what can provide stability, growth, what is partnering. I mean, while a degree is important for an entry, thereafter, I think it's how quickly can a person or how efficiently can a person imbibe himself or herself into the real requirements of the role. It's not really about the documentation or the personal files or the leave attendance,
Yes.
Monitoring. It's a lot more than that. And that I think a lot of people learn as they go along in their experience as HR people in the way. I mean, while the basic tenets are taught, like, okay, what are the principles of human behavior? What kind of managements are there? What are the leadership styles? Like all of that is taught. And I guess that's why most organizations would want, like, okay, there has to be a entry. But thereafter, I think and I've seen myself, like, I've been part of organizations where actually people who are non-HR have come into very senior positions in HR and have excelled. And the vice versa is also true. A lot of people from HR have developed such strong understanding of their businesses and have worked so closely in the businesses that they have made some really amazingly inspiring careers on the business side, having moved out or having had additional responsibility of working in business. So I guess it's a lot about what the person does with that degree or, with that formal qualification.
True. Thank you.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, very
my
much.
experience.
Very much.
Thank you, ma'am. What advice would you like to give to the coming generation in HR profession as well as, the non-HR guys?
Oh, advice is very difficult. And, I have, because I'm a coach, I'm taught not to give advice. So here's what I will do. I'll perhaps draw or lean on to some of my experiences, and maybe that's something, if people find that valuable, they can follow it if they want. For instance, for future of HR will be a beautiful, unprecedented combination of technology and the human aspect. And in the middle, which is, all these processes part, the operations part, all of that is going to slowly, or maybe very fast, this is going to become obsolete. What will remain is that how integrated is technology into the overall HR experiences that HR people create for the employees in the organization, and how much focus is given on the human element of it. One part is to be operationally efficient, that all processes run well, all documents are in place, everything is fine in audit. But all of this is going to get automated. It's already gotten automated. So the excellence in HR will not lie in that space. It will lie in these two extremes of technology and the human angle. And how well is the future HR professional able to integrate these two, to translate them into delightful employee experience. It's like, all of us come to an organization or work for an organization because the way that organization makes us feel, quite similar to when we go to a restaurant. And it's not so, it is about what we eat, but it's also about how we are made to feel in that restaurant. How is the service? How often, how anticipatory is their service? Like, do I have to wait to call somebody and then they arrive, or do they come and check? How proactive, how anticipatory, how delightful is their service? And I think HR, a large part of HR is also about creating those delightful experiences, the positive moments of truth, not forgetting that after all, we are dealing with human beings here. The way of dealing, I mean, what is it called? Like to deliver this experience, we may rely on technology, and we can use automation and, all of that. But at the end of the day, we are not delivering it to an ID number so-and-so. We are actually delivering it to an employee who's a human being. And I think that is the basic in HR profession that I would like to see more of in the future HR professionals.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Pratima, if there is time, I have one more question.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Is there time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I have to ask ma'am if ma'am has time, if we can take one more question.
Yeah, sure. You had told me it was from 5 to 6, so I'm all yours till 6 o'clock. So, yeah.
Ms. Bhattacharya, as I mentioned, I've been a company secretary for a major part of my life. And this particular profession yields to getting more and more women into the jobs. For example, wherever I worked, I think more than 50% of the persons working there were women. In Mehta and Mehta, where she works, and I am also an advisor there. I think we have got 90% or 80% women. So my question to you is, while in this profession, women have got their rightful place, maybe more than their rightful place, we still find in India various places where women are somewhere around 15-20%, maybe a little bit higher in the IT industry, but still nowhere around close to 50%. What do you think needs to be done to increase this percentage to anywhere around 40% across the board?
It's actually it's wonderful that people are becoming more conscious of these analytics and these data points, and I'm so glad that you brought this up. And there's a global movement around the whole diversity and inclusion part, and where more and more women can take opportunity. But so actually, look at our country. I mean, we're still waking up to the fact that education is the right of all. I think we'll have to give it some more time when everybody really gets a basic education and hence come to a point of choosing that they would want to join a corporate. I mean, we are still talking about the urban mass, and urban mass is nothing really. And it's probably little easier in the urban mass because people get exposure, people go to schools and colleges and they understand and they choose a profession and then they go for it and they study, they do their MBA and stuff. But if you really have to look at diversity, we have to look at what's the larger country like and how many people there are even in a position to choose that they want to have a career in corporate. How many of them really know that that they can have a career in the corporate. But the good news is that the dashboards have changed and they've shown some really positive developments in the last few years. And I guess the more and more such work happens and more such awareness comes, I think more and more people will choose, more and more women will choose to represent, to start a career or come and join corporates. And it's happening. There are so many people who are coming from smaller towns or even villages to cities where there are employment opportunities.
Yes.
So many young girls, they live on their own to be able to make their careers. And it's heartening to see so much promise and so much enthusiasm for them to do something in the corporate space and create a name. So I guess if we give it a little more time, I'm sure we will see these scales looking much more happier. And maybe you and I can then exchange a note in the next few years and say, you remember that conversation we had that day?
Yes.
That's something that I would really like to see more. But I'm glad that there's conversation around it and people are. And first, and I forgot the most important thing that you mentioned your organization has 90% women staff.
Around 85, I think. Our organization is about 85%.
Incredible. Look at this, sir. You are setting a trend like this. That's so inspirational for organizations. It is possible. It's a reality, where the scales are actually inverted. Most people would say, okay, I just have 10-15% people.
In fact, in our organization, I've been talking about prevention of sexual harassment of the males.
But sir, I'm sure that day is not far when somebody will really I hope I'm not quoted. Huh? Please do what you say or edit. It's said in a zest. Hey, but sir, harassment, to be fair, harassment is not only not for one gender, right? Harassment
Yes.
can happen to anyone.
True.
Yeah.
True, very true. Actually, no, Ms. Bhattacharya, this the improvement which has been brought about in service conditions for women, especially the maternity benefits which have been extended substantially, it's been a very good development. But this has been used. You know what has been the effect of this? When persons are being recruited, because of this, they do not recruit women. Because of this, a very sad offshoot of a very good thing that was introduced.
Yeah, I remember we were trying to introduce a policy of paternity leave for 6 months.
Yes, 6 months.
We said, if maternity leave is for 6 months, then can there be paternity leave as well? And especially if that paternity leave can be anywhere between 3 to 12 months of the, after the baby is born. So that if the mother wants to return to work after 6 months, then there is another parent who can take care of the child. Because, in cities, there's a lot of people who have nuclear families, and they probably may not have support to look after their baby, etc. It was interesting, sir, the amount of reservation that we had to that. We had to say that because the Maternity Benefit Act has mandated women who can take 6 months. So we are fine to comply with an act. But what about the larger requirement of the family? And why is the resistance when we're talking about paternity leave? But you're so right that yes, a lot of organizations shy away, a lot of people managers shy away from recruiting women because they think, in a few years they're going to go on maternity, or they will go away.
Correct.
And all of that. And what you said is right, that what a sad offshoot of a development like this, which is basically to support the family. Yeah, but again, sir, it all depends upon how individuals respond to it. Like, as a people manager, if you take an empathetic call towards a policy like this, but another person is not taking that kind of a call, there lies the difference. And I think a lot of it is also then, the impact of it is also felt on the gender diversity ratios in organizations.
Correct.
Ma'am, there must be a lot of negativity which would be coming, when you're handling a lot of stuffs. So how did you handle the negativity in and around the employees and all?
I mean, again, this is a personal value. I would much rather be a recipient of this than the creator of this. If you want to put all the negativity on me, that's fine, as long as I'm not the one who's creating that negativity. So that's also a big filter for me, that you are creating it, you're responsible for it. I'm not creating it. So it's my choice whether I let that impact me. Doesn't it impact me? Of course it does. Don't I have vulnerable moments? Of course I do. I've had terrible vulnerable moments in the last couple of years. Like, it has gone to a point of meltdown. But each time I'm at that brink, I just tell myself that I have not created this. If somebody is pointing a finger or accusing me or telling me something, spreading that negativity, it is that person who's doing it. So he or she is responsible. I can't take that responsibility. And if I can make that person's situation a bit easier, I will take a step forward and I will try and do that. But does that mean that I do not take tough calls? I have to take. That's a part of my profession. But the intention is not wrong. The intention is not to negatively impact somebody. It's a fine balance, and that's also about some of the domains. Like, I'm sure as a company secretary, there are various discretionary roles that one would perform, where it is left to interpretation. People are, why did you interpret it like this? Why did you take this action? Those are thin lines, those are fine lines. But as long as I'm clear about what I'm doing, and as long as my heart is clear, that's okay. I mean, which road to any destination is without pain, tell me?
Yes. Yes.
And I think this is something that people need to understand, that it can't be all hunky-dory.
Yes.
It's a big reality check. Like, there will be pitfalls, there will be roadblocks, there will be stones on the road, and I will trip and fall, and I'll have to have the strength to again stand up. What's the point in transferring? If I'm feeling negative about a situation, what's the point in transferring it to someone else? What has that person done? But all this comes with age, all this comes with experience, also the value systems that we are governed with. Yeah, so a whole lot.
True. True. True.
Any other questions, Shailesh sir, you have?
No, I think
Okay.
I've covered the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your time.
Thank you so much, Pratima. And I do hope that this was worth your while. And I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed it.
But
And I would
Pratima, I'll propose a vote of thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Bhattacharya, for this lovely evening and for the lovely talk that you gave. You came out as such a down-to-earth person and occupying such important positions in life. I do hope we do meet sometime after 2 years and exchange notes on the points which I made and you clarified so well. Yeah. You were saying something?
No, and I was saying, and also laugh at how important it is to justify.
Yes, justification. That was the best one. I'm going to use it with your permission in other places.
Of course, sir. Anytime. It's not my copyright at all.
What I liked about your talk was you describing COVID-19 and the situation, lockdown situation, as a beautiful equalizer. That's a very nice way of looking at it. Beautiful equalizer, both for the management as well as for the employees, and learning new things. You have got such a fantastic positive view on things that it really made my evening today.
So thank you for being so generous and kind. But I mean, I've worked with some of the people. I mean, I've worked with Varsha for a fairly long time. And
yes,
I mean, it's so yeah, I mean, this is how it is. I mean, sometimes obviously we have to don different hats, different times. Sometimes it's the tough taskmaster hat. Sometimes it's the compassionate individual hat. Sometimes it's the, the coach hat to empathize and understand. Different hats we have to, and each of those hats have a code. But we can't really, I mean, I don't believe that I need to restrict myself to one hat only and just be in that zone. So I'm sure you have much more experience than I have, sir, and you would agree that designations, grades, hierarchy, positions are transitory. But what will be important for me is that if my colleagues remember me as somebody whom they would like to cherish, a coffee with, or call sometimes, or I think that's what is more. But वही है लेने के लिए life. I mean, rest of the stuff is all. It's okay. It's about opportunities.
And I'll end my vote of thanks with a quote of yours. The world is fair. You said, the world is.
The world is fair. Yes. At the end of it, sir, the world is fair. There may be moments when the world appears to be unfair. But last में जाके वो everything becomes fair. Otherwise, the story doesn't end.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for being
Lovely
here
to
today.
see Varsha here. I haven't seen her in a while.
Yeah. Thank you, Sudakshana. You are as usual very endearing and articulating so well. Thank you
Varsha.
for sharing your views.
Lovely to see you. Yeah, let me know if your viewers find this useful. Thank you so much, and have a lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye. Thank you, Pratima and Shailesh sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.